Hello all, welcome to UPSC Made Simple. In issue based mains preparation, today we will discuss forest conservation rules 2022, issues associated with it and some controversies. So in this particular video, we will first see the context of this issue and controversy, then we will see what are the rules, then we will see Forest Right Act 2006 and its linkage to Forest Conservation Act 1980. Then we will see what are the new rules, then we will see significance of these new rules, then concerns associated with these new rules, and then we will see conclusion. So starting with the context, what you can see, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has come up with new rules under Forest Conservation Act 1980. And why they have come up with this? They have updated to improve efficiency of forest diversion and streamline process. And they made some changes in the rules, and based upon these changes there were some issues raised by Jairam Ramesh. He was a former environment minister, then some tribal activists, then some environmentalists. They raised concerns over these new rules. Now we'll see what are that rules and all. So first, what are the rules? So forest conservation rules are rules that are there to implement Forest Conservation Act 1980. They prescribe procedure for what? They prescribe procedure for diversion of forest land, for non-forestry use. That can be road construction, that can be railway, that can be mining, that can be any dam project, etc. Right? So basically they are to implement Forest Conservation Act and prescribe procedure for diversion of forest land. Right? So now what is the procedure? If the land is more than 5 hectares, then there is one procedure to be followed. So then Union Government through Forest Advisory Committee they will examine the case whether this particular case or this land can be suitable for this particular project or not. Then they will send this report to state governments, this Forest Advisory Committee. Then state government will ensure whether this land and whatever procedure they have gone through, whether it is in coherence with Forest Right Act 2006 and its provision. If they are duly compiled, then it will give permission for diversion of this land. Once this FCA gives approval, it will have two things. First, the private entity or the project which will use this land, they have to give compensatory land for afforestation. Second, they have to give value of this forest around 10 to 15 lakh per hectare. two things they will do, right? Then we'll see what is the correlation of this particular rules with respect to Forest Right Act 2006. So as you know, what is the aim of this particular Forest Right Act? It was to protect forest and wildlife. First. Second, it was to check attempts on diversion of forest land. Then it was to strive to increase forest cover. These were some of the basic. And then protect rights of inhabitants of forest dwellers. Rights of inhabitants, right? So this Forest Act ensures these particular things through, first, they require free, prior and informed consent of forest inhabitants or forest dwellers. Then there is a requirement of written consent by Gram Sabha, which is mandatory for diversion of forest land for projects, right? So we have seen rules, we have seen Forest Right Act and its correlation. Then we will see what are the new rules. First change they made, like earlier there used to be requirement of consent from union government, consent to be taken from local people or inhabitants by union government. Now they have changed it to state government. Now state government will take consent. State government will take consent from locals. Earlier it was union government. Second, once approved by Forest Advisory Committee, then state government can directly allocate that land to the project and it can take funds. Then it can allow union government, these new rules, they can allow union government to permit project before consultation with inhabitant. This is one of the controversial provision. Like now government, central government or union government can permit land to the project before consultation of the locals, right? Then there is no meaning to consultation of locals, right? Then again it can be hand over forest once it is approved, and then union government can collect payment even before consent. Two things, consultation and consent. Before both these things, union government can allow the project, it can give the land, it can collect the payment, right? And then very important provision that has become more controversial is private parties land, right? Usually what happens, if some project takes this particular piece of land, so under compensatory afforestation they have to make forest for similar land, right? So what used to happen, for this particular land to replace it, there were a lot of issues because state government was not able to give this kind of replaceable land to this particular project to have afforestation. But now what happened, Now if they want to make a project, they will make project on this particular land, and rather than taking replacement land from the state, they can directly take private parties land which has plantation of forest, right? So they have removed this provision of giving land for afforestation from state government. Now it can be done on the private land also, right? So this is again a very controversial provision. Now what is the significance of this particular new rules? Significance of new rules is they are providing better clarity, that speed will increase for clearance and all. Then it will expand scope of compensatory land, right? Again we'll see some concerns. We have just seen new provisions, but what are the concerns with respect to that? So now it is not mandatory to take consent of Gram Sabha. Earlier it was mandatory. Now it is a kind of forced consent. As earlier there used to be clearance only after the consent from this local inhabitants, but now there is diversion of land without their consent, without their approval, right? So that's why it has become forced consent. And as once clearance is there, once there is a clearance, there is no claim. No claim will be recognized and settled by the authorities. Then it will end ease of living for many Adivasis and tribal people, and new rules are without wider consultation and discussion. Now what can be the possible way forward? Same, you can link to the issues. Government can reconsider this decision or can find any alternative. Rather than force, there should be scope for consent. Then government can think of some wider consultation before making into final rules. Government can have discussion with other stakeholders like environmental, tribal activists, then former foreign minister. They can have discussion and consultation, and then they can come out to the final rules, right? Then coming to the conclusion, you can directly say that there should be focus on constructive debates and discussions with concerned stakeholders before going for any rules or any act, right? And in this particular rules, the rights of forest dwellers should be considered, right? So thank you very much. I will upload this PDF on our Telegram channel. You can join. I will give link in the description, right? We will come up with new mains based issue tomorrow. Thank you.